What's going on, YouTube? This is SG1 Sports, and you're watching our SEC football channel. We gave you our top 10 players from every SEC team, and now we're going to update this list. I've taken the feedback from you guys. I've done a little bit more research. We've watched the spring games, and we're going to go through each team, and we're going to update the top 10 players. And I'll also give you some players that were just left off of the list, just so I can include the players that I thought were worthy of consideration. So I'll go ahead and start with that for Kentucky, and I'm going to give you the players that either got knocked off the list or are guys that I considered that didn't just quite make it. We start with Tyrell Ajian at safety. He just missed out on the list. He was on the original list. Landon Young, offensive tackle, he came off of the original list. And then also Kavosiey Smoke at running back, another guy that I think could potentially be on this list, but because he's a backup running back, we did leave him off. So that means we got two new players on the top 10 list, and it starts with Jamar Watson. And this Kentucky team looks really, really good at linebacker and in the front seven. You look at Watson's numbers last year: 24 tackles, 5 sacks, 3 pass breakups, a forced fumble. And again, it didn't play a whole lot last year. I mean, it wasn't a full-time starter, didn't start every game. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think he played like 10 games. But there are some guys gone at the linebacker position, so they're going to have some leaders step up, and I think he could be one of those guys. Devante Robinson, one of the fastest players on this team, 42 tackles last year, 3 tackles for loss, 2 fumble recoveries, 4 pass breakups. Just all around the ball as a safety. I expect him to be a big-time impact player for this Kentucky defense. The secondary is probably the biggest area of concern when you look at this defense. So I think Devante Robinson could really solidify himself as the main guy, the best player in that secondary, and we've got him at number 9. At number 8, we've got Chris Oats, also making his debut onto this list. Was suggested by a lot of you. I looked at his numbers, looked at what he did last year, and I think he has a chance to really be one of the leaders at that linebacker position for this Kentucky team. Last year had 27 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, had 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 1 fumble recovery. So again, this is a guy that was all around the football, making plays, and could be a big-time impact player for them. This Kentucky team looks very, very good at that linebacker position. At number 7, we've got Quinton Bo Hanna. On the defensive line, maybe the best, probably is the best defensive lineman on this team. He's the highest rated player on my rankings anyways. So yeah, this is a guy that I think could have a big, big impact for this team in 2019. Just an anchor there on that defensive line. So we'll see what he's able to do. Look at his numbers from last year: 17 tackles, 4 tackles for loss, a sack, a forced fumble, fumble recovery. But defensive tackles don't usually have eye-popping stats or anything like that. Their job is just to eat up blocks and sometimes make plays in the backfield, and I think he's going to be able to do that. At number 6, we've got DeAndre Square, another linebacker. I'm telling you, this team is really good at this linebacker position. I think he might be the best. 35 tackles last season, 4 tackles for loss, 1 sack, a forced fumble, pass breakup. Josh Allen is gone, so that means a lot of production is gone, and collectively this group of linebackers is going to have to replace him. I think DeAndre Square might be the number 1 linebacker on this team as we look at a very good group at that position. Number 5 is Terry Wilson. Had a great game in the spring game. Looked really, really good throwing the football. It was a spring game. It was against the number 2s, but still, if he can develop as a passer with his running ability, Terry Wilson has a chance to be really, really good in 2019. I think he's going to be really good. I don't know, how good he's going to be as a passer, but I think he's going to be improved. He threw for almost 2,000 yards last year, so it wasn't horrible. Those are pretty good numbers. He was pretty efficient throwing it as well. 547 yards rushing, 15 total touchdowns. Look for him to have a big year, and if he does, this Kentucky team is going to be really good. A.J. Rose at number 4. I think he's going to be the go-to running back for them. He looked good in the spring game, had 442 yards rushing last year, and that was just in a backup role to Benny Snell. 6.2 yards per carry, had 5 touchdowns on the ground. Also had, I think, 1 receiving touchdown in there as well. So this is a guy that I think is ready to carry the workload. You've got Smoke in there as well, so he can take some of the pressure off. But I think Rose is going to have a big, big year, and a guy that a lot of people will be talking about by the time the season is over. And one of the guys that's going to be blocking for him is Drake Jackson, we've got him at number 3. He earned a starting role as a true freshman, and last year he started every single game. Really just an anchor for them on that offensive line, a leader for this offensive line, and they're going to have a good offensive line. We talked about Landon Young, so they had 2 guys that were considered, and I don't really look at the offensive linemen a whole lot. I might throw one on this list if they're really good, but to have 2 guys considered, I think that tells you a lot. You got Drake Jackson, again, at center, so he's going to be the leader for this offensive line, and he could have a big impact on how good that run game really is. I've got Kash Daniel still at number 2, a tackling machine, 84 tackles last season, 7.5 tackles for loss. One of those was a sack as well. And again, we talked about the linebacker. I mentioned Square and Oats and all these guys. And then here we go at number 2, it's Kash Daniel. So you're talking about probably maybe the deepest linebacker group in the SEC. Maybe not the most talented, but they've got 4 guys that are all really good. And Kash Daniel, I'm going to put him as the best linebacker. And Lynn Bowden at number 1 last year, 745 yards receiving, 5 touchdowns. He was the go-to guy. He's going to be the go-to guy again this year. Made a big play in the spring game. And I think he's the best player on this team. I really do. I think the offense is going to go through him. He's going to have to really step up, and that's going to help some of the other receivers as well in this passing game. And like I said, if they can develop a passing game with the front 7 that they're going to have on defense, Kentucky could be really good again. Last year wasn't a fluke. I don't know that they're going to be able to replicate that, but if the passing game is there, I think they could be really good and maybe even make a run back to a New Year's Six Bowl. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough, but I think it's a possibility. Give me your thoughts. Did I do better this time around? Is this list better for you Kentucky fans? Again, I listened to your feedback. I also did more research, and we had the spring game. We had a lot more information to take in. I might update this list again and do a preseason list. Probably not. I don't really see much changing between now and then. So this may be our final list, our final top 10 list for Kentucky. And so these are the guys that I'm going to say will be the top 10 players in 2019. Again, your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching, and stay tuned for more here on the SG1 Sports SEC Football Channel.